D-I-C. In the house, it is Josh Harkins. Good morning, Senator. Mr. Chair, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Good morning, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing good. Happy Thanksgiving to you, sir.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. You doing? You got the turkey lined up?
We are eating at one of the Chillins' home for turkey for this Thanksgiving. We haven't cooked. This is the first time we haven't cooked a bombastic meal in a long time, but you know, when you get a little bit older, yeah, we terrorize them for a while, then let them clean up.
Exactly.
I think it's a great idea, to be honest with you. So, a lot of things to talk about. First of all, I just wanted to move into the situation on the finance. How are we doing out there as far as with the inflation and everything else?
Well, I think we're doing pretty well as far as the revenue collections. As of right now, I think the last we saw, we were up over $300 million fiscal year to date. And last year we had a pretty good year by all accounts. I think we had a little over $1.5 billion revenue over and above expenses. So right now, fiscally, I think we're in the best shape we've ever been in.
So is that 4 months? Really a 4-month total
since July 1?
Since July 1, up over $300 million.
Mm-hmm.
Is that any federal dollars or anything like that, or is that
that's just state revenues?
That's state revenue.
State revenue,
which is pretty darn good, especially.
It's very good. But I think if you drill down in some of the numbers, I haven't had a chance to look down in the last report we got for October, but you know, I think the individual income tax was up over the prior year. Corporate income tax was up. Sales tax was down from prior year about almost $40 million, but we're still trending in a growth phase, and so I think it's we're sitting on good financial footing right now. We paid off about almost $300 million in debt last year. We didn't incur any new debt. We didn't bond, so we didn't take on any new debt. The special session we just got through with, we paid cash for the first tranche of that bill. So, we're sitting in a good spot. I think we'll wind up paying off another $306 million this coming year. So we'll paid off $600 million in the last 2 years, and not taking on any new debt. We should be right under $4 billion in total debt of general obligation bonds after this year.
We didn't take on any bonds as far as the big steel manufacturer over in Columbus.
We bonded for it to make sure that the company felt confident that we had the resources set aside for the agreement, but we actually paid cash for the first tranche. So we lessened the amount of the bonds that are outstanding by that amount, and the next tranche shouldn't be due for another year or two, and we can certainly pay cash for that if there's money aside, and hopefully we'll do that.
Josh, where are we as far as the budget and everything else? Is all that set, or is it still a moving target? Are we finished with that?
We set that in the session, and I think it's around $6.3 billion this year. And we've had several budget hearings over the last couple months, and we'll have another one I think in December. And then the session will start in January, and we'll get to working on next year's fiscal budget.
A lot of those, I saw a story where a lot of those, the amounts were the same as last year, and no increase.
I believe some were increased. We went from about 5. I think the prior year's budget was around 5.8, 5.9, and we did the teacher pay raise, which was about $250 million. I know that was increased. We increased IHL. There were several budgets that were increased for raises across the board. So I'm not sure what all the budgets the increase were in several of them, but I know we did increase pay in several and plussed up some folks.
Well, there's always people who are not happy, but then again, they were talking about inflation is there and it's going to cost more, but you're saying that there are some increases out there.
Yeah, there are some increases. I mean, you got to remember back when COVID hit, I think we cut everybody almost 5%, even cut education about 1%. So there were, we're building back on some of those budgets that we cut over time, and inflation is not just a factor that affects you and me individually, but it affects state governments. So, there's a lot of services and things that the state has to deal with that inflation is taking a toll on as well.
What's your feeling, I'm sure this is going to be brought up again, as far as some type of expansion of Medicaid, but not called that, or to look at maybe increasing that, the postpartum, and adding to that. would the revenues, being what they are now, enhance that in the Senate and make that Senate push even more so to the House?
No, I mean, I think the postpartum issue, I've heard you discuss on your show several times. I know that Senator Nicole Boyd is having some hearings this off season about it, and some of the things that we took a vote on that during the session, and extending coverage is not expanding. I mean, these are people that are already on Medicaid for pregnancy, and extending the services to 12 months. I think just about every state around us does that to an extent. I think Texas may do it 6 months. But there's the health of the mother, and whether or not, family planning, trying not to have another pregnancy immediately after having the last one, which my understanding is that the cost was about $5 to $7 million. But the savings on, the services that won't have to occur because you're prepared on the front end to take care of some of these issues, there's savings on the back end of it. So I think that's one of the questions that will get fleshed out this session concerning postpartum. That's something that's been talked about a lot lately.
Yeah. I want to talk more about the budget and some other things too when we come back on the other side. Give us enough time to do that. And
sure.
Can we entertain what the governor wants and what some people in the House and Senate want, and some don't want, or more? A little worried about as far as the income tax. We'll talk about that on the other side. There's a couple of other things. Where are we? Because you've been involved as far as the airport for a while there, and I haven't asked you this question in a long time. I hate to bring it up again.
Oh,
is that a sore subject, or
no,
would you rather go to commercial?
No, I get asked that frequently. What's the status? And I'll hear anecdotal stories of people and just issues that they've had at the airport. But to my knowledge, last December they went before the Fifth Circuit, and I'm not aware of a decision on that hearing that's happened yet. They're still.
Well, what was the
it was over. Well, I think this is the third time we've been to the Fifth Circuit on this issue, and I think this is just about some preliminary issues about what's evidence that it will be considered, and they allowed them to refile their lawsuit. So, I mean, most everybody that was on the original lawsuit is no longer serving in a capacity or has been removed from the case, is my understanding. So.
Well, for people who don't know what we're talking about, explain the lawsuit.
So, several years ago, I'll almost say a decade, but it's been 5 years ago, we filed a bill to expand the board of the airport. And right now, I think there are 5 positions, and what the bill would allow for is 9 positions. 2 of them would be served by the adjutant general or his designee, or the head of MDA or their designee. 5 of the positions would be with the city of Jackson, and then 1 from Madison County and 1 from Rankin County. And it doesn't take over any of the, everybody thinks that any money made would not go to the city of Jackson. The only revenue that goes to the city are sales tax generated at the airport or property taxes, because the city of Jackson annexed the actual footprint of the airport. So those revenues would still go to the city. But what the bill did was it required that members of the board have kind of a background, whether it's an attorney, a CPA, an engineer, a pilot, economic developer, something that brings value to the board. There's several boards that we have across the state that are constituted that have requirements on the members that serve on that board. And so I think you saw so many people kind of concerned and had issues with the direction the airport was headed that, felt like it was time to do something.
And see, now you won't have to answer those questions anymore because you've just
explained
it. Yeah. Do have other questions coming up. Also, there is a meeting that I want to ask you about. Do you have some information I got over the weekend? A meeting that is going on today that we'll see if you have any input on that one. More with Josh Harkins, state senator, who's also chairperson of Senate Finance Committee. Mike Hurst coming in at 8:05 in the House. We'll talk to him on a busy Monday, Thanksgiving week. We even had our Monday greeted with some sleet across the state for a while. Didn't count too many snowflakes, though. Dedicated to Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, gosh.
Live from the Trustmark Studios on a Monday for times when you need a helping hand and you know it's there for the people you trust. Advice that works. Member FDIC. In the House, State Senator Josh Harkins, here is that question on that meeting here. There's a meeting that goes on today, and I just wondered, do you know anything about it? The meeting is a special call meeting to the Butler Snow Building Renaissance Colony in Ridgeland, Mississippi. A special call board meeting that will be held today, 10 o'clock this morning, for the purpose of finalists interviewed for the state superintendent. The special call board meeting will be held at the above location. The public is invited to attend. Do you know anything about that one?
Do not.
Is it to make a final decision or to go through applicants for the state superintendent of education?
I have no idea. They didn't invite me to that meeting.
Well, I mean,
I've got a special call meeting at my office to take care of some work, but no, I don't know. It may be to select a finalist for the vacancy.
For Kerry Wright's position.
Yes.
Yeah. We had a couple of names on there, but I'll hold those closely and not mention anything else about that.
You may know more than I do on that, Paul.
So what do you think, your thoughts on this as the finance chairman? Because there are two trains of thought. The governor has mentioned in some of his objectives for the 2023, I've heard this from some members of the House and Senate, this steel plant over there kind of exacerbated the need to maybe speed up our elimination of the personal income tax a little bit faster than you guys did it. Then there's this other concern out there, and I'm not going to say it rests more with liberalism or with the left crowd, but everybody's worried about, can we support our social programs, et cetera, et cetera. So your thoughts where we are now before we get into the 2023?
Well, if you go back to the times that I was on your show last year, we talked about, and the year before, we talked about income tax elimination. Mm-hmm. The thing that I've always wanted to make sure that we did was we did it responsibly, and we did it in a manner that would support not only the elimination of it, but the growth in our economy in our state. And at the same time, we had COVID come in and totally disrupt the economy and disrupt everything that what we thought is normal. We had over $33 billion of federal money pumped into our state over and above what's normally put in our state. $12 billion of it went to individuals through PPP, EIDL, and through unemployment compensation. So if you look at why is our revenue so great? I mean, in a time when we've had a pandemic and the economy shut down, why are we experiencing all of these record revenues? It's the sugar high from all the federal money that's been pumped into our state. So I think what I've always advocated for is to be methodical and deliberative about how you implement an income tax cut or elimination, as some want to call it. And I think what we came up with this past year was, $525 up to about $550 million elimination over 4 years. We eliminated 360 over 10 in 2016, and that everybody was hailing it as a great success in elimination or cutting the income tax. So we've done this and we're doing this on top of that 2016 tax cut. So we're actually implementing two tax cuts at the same time. Both of them will be fully implemented by 2026. So I think that as we go through this tax cut and we're eliminating taxes, we can watch the economy. We can see how our revenues are coming in. I mean, you're talking about recession. You're talking about all these factors that, yes, our spread between what we're budgeting and what we're bringing in is pretty good right now. But there are a lot of things that are going to hit that if they take the public health emergency away, our FMAP's going to go up. That's going to be a hit to Medicaid already. Our health insurance costs are skyrocketing. PERS is not, doing too wonderful right now. So there's a lot of issues with that going on. So taking all these circumstances in consideration, each year we come in, I think we can always adjust. We've cut taxes on top of cutting taxes. We can do it again in the future. I just don't know if there's any reason to do anything today. But I do see, I see the benefit of providing the relief to the taxpayers. It's just how we do it. I don't want to sit here and 5-10 years down the road, we still bring up the word beef plant around here. How we implement a tax cut is important because I don't want it to be something that we come back and go, God, they went too fast. They got too aggressive. They should have seen the signs. that were out there, and so for me, it's about being intentional in how you do it, because I think there's a lot of things that could it could come off the rails pretty quick if you go out there and overextend yourself.
If you look at numbers, you would have to say that every tax decrease that we've done or elimination has been profitable in the end, even though there were a lot of people whining about it and scared. You go back to the franchise tax and the, what was the other one, the inventory tax. You start looking at things like that, and people saw, the world's going to cave in. We can't do it. But it's always, since those days, the income's been even higher.
Yeah, it's been growth. We've allowed growth to help eat into that, and I think that's the way you should do it. You should allow your growth to help absorb some of the cuts and taking a. I think we've been pretty financially tight on how we budgeted. We've made good decisions, and I think that's playing out in front of us. But overextending yourself and doing something at a time when there's such economic uncertainty in the market, I think is what we want to be careful of. But look at the benefit of what we've also done is we've paid off debt. We haven't taken any more debt on. We've invested in our infrastructure. We've given, you mentioned earlier about plussing up some of the agencies. We gave $200 million more to MDOT than we normally do. We did not only this year's capacity projects, but we've also funded next year's capacity projects. We funded this year's maintenance projects, and we funded next year's maintenance projects through under MDOT. We put $100 million in emergency road and bridge fund. We did the match on the federal transportation package that came down. So we're making investments with our excess in areas I think that will pay dividends into the future. Yep. And God, look at all the ARPA money that's fixing to go into infrastructure across the state, whether it's stormwater, water and sewer, to really help our communities across our state. So there's a lot of activity that's going to be burning and churning through the market in the coming years. And I think we're in a great spot. I think we just need to be careful how we proceed and not to overextend ourselves. But we have an aggressive tax cut in front of us that's going to take about $600 million out of the revenues over the next 4 years or so. And you consider that a third of our revenue right now that we use for government comes from income tax. So growth is going to have to take into account a major part of it as we cut down on the income tax.
Let me say this too, because I know Josh had a lot of words there, but they do transcend to action. And let me give you an example, because I think people want to hear this. Brad White, who's the executive director of MDOT, had a statement in the last few days, and it's kind of a benchmark of an achievement in funding and work done. So what Josh was talking about transcends into when you're driving your vehicle this morning, the roads are better. That's because we always get questions, what happened to this money? What happened to that money? Brad said that the increase in funding and in-agency focus on efficiency, those two things, the number of projects that were approved to begin construction reached an all-time high in the past fiscal year. The total was $964 million in projects was approved the fiscal year 2022.
I think that's almost twice as much as they've.
It's an 80% increase, 80% increase over the previous 5 years, and the most that's ever been approved by the agency. So work is being done.
Absolutely, and I think that goes back to what we've tried to do is we've tried to address these issues. And look, there are a lot of issues. The goalpost continuously move. You should never be satisfied of where you get to. You always should be reaching to do something more and better. And I think that's what we're trying to do. There are a lot of issues that face us that we take under consideration every year when the session starts. And transportation has been one of these issues that we've tried to address, systematically and try to allocate money. The revenues from the lottery are one, and just the investment we're making in infrastructure across the board through ARPA and through all the excess revenues that we have, I think are indicative of where our focus is on trying to be smart and plan for the future.
I don't think anybody knows how much money we're going to make from the state going to make from marijuana. I was kind of amazed when Ken was on with me last week. He says the number of people who have actually, and I know it's early yet, but the people who actually have cards out there who've gone through the necessary certification, I think he said 530. This is a multi-million-dollar business that people are investing in across the state. And you can't support that with a customer base of 530 people across the entire state. And I know it's early, but it just gives... if I had my money in that, I'd be a little shaky, one way or the other as far as how many people are going out and getting their cards thus far. Final segment. Want to ask you this question coming back. If we continue, which apparently we will for the most part, the chances are, on the schedule that we have now for the elimination completely of income taxes on a personal basis, what year would that happen? That answer from Josh Harkins coming up next. I think enough said on a song like that. There you go. If your holiday season includes a new look for a new home, then count on Trustmark. People you trust, advice that works. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Final question here. What was the question I was going to ask you?
Something related to the income tax.
Yeah. What year was it that will it be when it's complete?
Well, Paul, who knows? I guess it depends on the rate at which we progress. In the future, I think. Yeah. This past tax cut took the 4% bracket, which was the next $5,000 above the 3%, and eliminated it in 1 year. Back in 2016, it took 3 years to eliminate the 3%. We eliminated the 4% in 1 year, and then we take the top marginal rate from 5 down to 4% over the next 3 years. So we eliminate 1% off of the income tax down to 4%, which makes us the fifth lowest, I think, in the country. It's around $380 million, I believe, somewhere around that area for every percent of income tax. So, if you take it at a quarter point or a third each time, it's a pretty good, $100 million, $120 million, $125 million bump every year. You're doing that. So, extrapolate that out over, if you're doing it. 4 times to get a point, it's going to take another 16 years. But eliminating it based on growth, if you have the growth that has the spread in there, I think you can take a more aggressive approach. But it's all going to just depend on the economy and what's going on.
And in all reality, as far as, and I brought up the marijuana thing, if that happens to be more of an over expectation, some of that money could go into that also, I would imagine.
Absolutely. And the other thing about the debt that I guess people you don't really think about, but when you eliminate debt, you're eliminating recurring dollars having to go to debt service. So that helps to fill the gap of areas where you are experiencing inflationary growth and whether it's your health insurance, whether it's PERS, whether it's any teacher pay raise, those things that we want to do. It helps to fill that void, so you're not having to come up with new dollars. You're saving dollars otherwise would have been going into debt service. And considering the interest rates are so high right now, I think it's good that we're in the position where we're burning cash instead of borrowing money.
As far as your committee, when you get to the asset reflux projects that are going to be happening in the finance committee in 2023. What do you think they're going to be? Would one of those is really making a decision on how much money we're going to spend on prisons? And are we going to build a new one? Can we afford that, and et cetera? Yeah,
I think those type of decisions are made holistically in consideration with a lot of other projects. But most of the projects that we're doing through bond are more local projects, whether it's road, bridge. I mean, people have requests. I bet I got $2 billion in requests for projects back home, but what we tried to focus on since I've been chair of finance is more long-term projects that exceed the length on payout on bonds. So if you're doing 20-year bonds, you want to make sure you're doing projects that are going to be viable and last longer than 20 years. You don't want to bond for an air conditioner that's going to be gone in 12 and you're still paying on it for 8 more years. So what we focused on is road projects, is water and sewer, those type projects that have a lifelong life expectancy longer than 20 years.
You mentioned PERS. Are you concerned with that? Do you think that's going to turn around when the market turns around, or where are we with that?
Well, I mean, if the market is doing well, we're doing well in PERS. If it's not, then we're not doing well, and some of those things will have to be looked at. Every year I meet with Director Higgins, and we kind of go through the ins and outs of where we are in PERS, and I'll look forward to seeing him in January, getting an update.
Yeah. Anything else in the legislative session that's on your handle or on your desk as far as personally in your district?
Just in my district, it's the economy, it's jobs, it's making sure things are moving, and they are. I know in the county we're doing well. We've got a lot of
Rankin County's doing quite well, aren't they?
It's had the lowest unemployment since I've been elected in 2011. Month in, month out, it's right at the bottom.
Stay in touch, my man,
Thank
during
you,
the
Paul.
session.
Good to
Appreciate it
see
very
you.
much. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, too. Y'all have a wonderful